Elly De La Cruz did not disappoint as the Reds opened up Cactus League play last weekend. I'll talk about what we've seen so far on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Reds. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Stephen Offenbaker. I am a lifelong Cincinnati Reds fan. I love this team. I love baseball, and I have been talking about them in podcasting form for the last 7 years or so. I love talking Reds baseball with you. Glad you are here. On today's show, the Reds have opened Cactus League play last weekend. They split a pair of split squad games on Saturday before losing to the Giants on Sunday. But Elly De La Cruz on Saturday, he came to play. I'll be talking a lot about his performance, as well as a few of the other Reds hitters that were working to get the rust off. It wasn't just the hitters that were putting on a show and trying to get things going. It was the pitchers. I have my eye on a few of them, and I have several thoughts on the Reds arms we saw in early action. I'll discuss some of the takeaways from those first starts of the season with the Reds pitching and some of the relief pitchers as well. We're also going to look, now that we are 31 days away from opening day, at the best Red to ever wear the number 31. All of that is on today's show, which is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets back if your first $5 bet wins. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com today to get started. And where I am going to get started is talking about Elly De La Bombs. Elly De La Cruz came to play. He scored the Reds' first run of spring training with a first inning solo shot, batting left-handed. The ball just kind of kept carrying to right center field and made it out of Goodyear Ballpark. Not to be considered a lucky fly ball that drifted. In his next at bat, he did it again, but this time he did it right-handed. Elly hit a solo shot right-handed to go 2 for 2 on the day with 2 home runs, 2 RBIs. Great first spring training performance for Elly De La Cruz. He looked good in the field. It was just great to have Elly back out on the field and in the game. I hope that we see a lot more of this from Elly in 2025. Some have wondered if Elly should give up switch hitting and just bat left-handed. And I hope that he sticks with it at least another season and maybe can get a little bit better at it. Hit for a little more power from the right side. What a dangerous guy. If he can hit for power for both sides of the plate consistently, Elly is just going to be so much fun this season. He wasn't the only guy that we were keeping an eye on, though. We tend to get lost in just the Elly talk because it's fun and he's going to be a superstar for a long time. But we were also watching some of the Reds coming back to the field after long injuries. I was watching Matt McLain very, very closely. He looked good out there at second base, fielded his position well, looked like when he made his throws, he wasn't having any problems, and he had some good at-bats. Didn't get a hit in the game in his first game back, but he hit the ball hard. It just, found gloves, but he hit the ball hard. He made solid contact. I didn't see anything from Matt McLain that would make me wonder, did he feel something there? Was something bothering him? Strong exit velocity. The key takeaway, I think, when you look at Matt McLain's early performance on Saturday, as well as what he does over the next couple of weeks, it's going to be less about what were the results during an at-bat or what were his results in a game. And I think he'll have some good results, but not so much worried about that. I'm more worried about his comfort, how he feels the next day after he plays. Do we see him, wincing? Do we see him grimacing, or does he look comfortable out there? And he looked comfortable out there on Saturday. It was just so much fun to see, our guys, Elly and Matt, back at second and shortstop. I'm looking forward to get to see that maybe, that combination 155 times in 2025. It was good to see Matt back. I'm cautiously optimistic that he'll just continue to be able to build and build and build. And we won't have to be worrying about, every time a ball comes his way or every time he swings, we won't have to be looking to see, did he flinch? Did something happen there? But it was good to see Matt back out there. Another guy coming off of injury that looked pretty good was Christian Encarnacion Strand. He played first base for the Reds on Saturday in the game at Goodyear against the Guardians, and he made a few good plays over at first base. He looked comfortable in the field, and he had a couple good at-bats as well. You know, he got a hit in this game. He was 1 for 2, solid contact, looked comfortable. And again, the things you're looking at from these injured players is, do we see anything that makes us think they're not quite right? Do we see anything that makes us think that they're still feeling it or that something's bothering them? And I didn't see that from Matt McLain. I didn't see that from CES. I think that both of those guys are on track right now. Both of them are going to be able to play their way back in the game shape and be ready to go for opening day. I'm really optimistic at what this Reds lineup can be if those two guys are healthy. And with Matt McLain's timeline, you know, he said all off season long, his doctors out in Los Angeles had given him a timeline that basically 1 year from the time of the injury, he would be back to 100%. Well, we're almost there. We're 31 days away from being there. So it's good to see that Matt McLain is on track. It's good to see that CES wasn't out there flexing that wrist or looking bothered by that wrist as he fielded his position, as he took his at-bats. He looked great, and I'm really excited about that. He looked like he was in great shape. CES did. You know, he put the work in the offseason, and I hope that translates into power for him once he's got his swing back down. You know, he went a long time without hitting and without facing major league pitching, so there's going to be probably some growing pains that even spring training is not going to allow them to get that rust off. It's just different. Every pitcher that I've ever talked to that's pitched at the big league level talks about the difference in pitching in a major league actual baseball game that counts and pitching in spring training or pitching in an exhibition or pitching in the minor leagues. The adrenaline, the extra effort behind the pitch just isn't there until you get into actual big league games. So I think when Matt McLain starts seeing, you know, major league pitching in a major league game, when CES starts seeing that same pitching, it may take a week or so for them to really get their timing down and really get to where they start to look comfortable. But again, I couldn't be happier with what we saw from both Matt McLain and CES in that first game back coming off those injuries. You know, they aren't the only guys that look good coming back off of some injury. I was quite surprised at how good, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but how good Jeimer Candelario looked playing third base in this first game. Now, I know, incredibly tiny sample size, incredibly tiny number of chances, but Jeimer looked good over there. He fielded the position well. You know, he made a play fielding and throwing across his body that I'm not sure he would have made last year because he was so nicked up. So he looked really good. He looked comfortable. And, you know, he started third base for the Reds on the opening day of the Cactus League. I don't think that's going to get me to get a bottle of Pappy's from Jeff, but I think that warrants, I don't know, Buffalo Trace or, you know, something like that. I'll have to talk to Jeffrey about that when he gets back because, you know, that's the bet, right? Jeimer starting at third base. He's not going to go for that, but it's fun to think about at any rate. In the other game of the split squad series, the Reds split squad was taking on the Brewers. Gavin Lux, what a debut. You know, first time out there in a Reds uniform, getting some action. He got his swing going early. He went 2 for 3 with 3 RBIs playing second base for the Reds in the road game. Terry Francona was managing that game. Good for Gavin. Way to make a solid first impression and get out there and, you know, endear yourself to your teammates and have a good day and have a good performance. Hopefully he continues that and keeps it going. TJ Friedel, Jose Trevino, Jake Fraley, and Santiago Espinal all also had hits on the first day of the Cactus League play. Santiago Espinal hit a homer, which a little bit more on that because in the second game, on Sunday, Espinal also had a triple. So a couple extra base hits early. You know, Santiago Espinal has been the forgotten man after the Gavin Lux trade and the things, the moves the Reds have made. You know, Santiago Espinal is basically going to be the last guy on this Reds bench. And if he can come in and deliver some timely extra base hits, that's just even better that the Reds kept him around. You know, I had advocated for the Reds to sign him, and they did. And I think he's a valuable piece to have down there at the end of the bench. It's very, very fun. I know it's a very, very early look at these young Reds, but so much fun and the energy back on the field and just being able to watch some baseball. What a great weekend. I really, really enjoyed it. Can't wait to continue to watch how this team develops and gels and watch all of these guys kind of work their way back, getting ready towards opening day. But it wasn't just the hitters that we were watching. There was also a lot of pitching to talk about in these games. We're going to discuss all of that coming up next. Spring training is getting started. Baseball is back, and there is no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. They've got tons of Reds-related futures right now, and my favorite one of those, Hunter Greene's strikeout total for 2025. They have him set at 160.5. That's right, 161 strikeouts from Hunter Greene, and you win. I'm going to take the over because Hunter Greene, he is going over. Looking for more than just baseball? Check out the NBA, because with FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off and you want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets back if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets back. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Make sure you are subscribed. That way you don't miss any of the great Reds content we've got for you. Make sure you click the subscribe button, the notification bell, click the like button, subscribe to the audio feeds, tell your friends. Baseball season is coming, and we want them subscribed, and we want to talk Reds baseball with them just like we talk Reds baseball with you. All right, guys, we got our first look at a lot of Reds pitching over the weekend. Everybody was getting into the games. Debuts were being made. Guys trying to work their way back. Guys trying to get roster spots. We got our first looks at some good ones. Graham Ashcraft battling to try and be in this rotation, trying to prove that he's worthy of a spot in the starting five. But more and more, I think about him being in the bullpen and get excited. But, he looked pretty good. He went 2 innings. He allowed a hit. He struck out a guy against the Brewers. It wasn't anything overwhelming, but it was exactly what you wanted to see from somebody their first time out in spring training. He wasn't out there overthrowing. He wasn't out there making lots of mistakes. He looked really good. I was glad to see him out there. And, as I've said all along, with putting Graham Ashcraft in the bullpen, I really think that the best handling of him in spring is to continue to run him out there like a starter, stretch him out, get him up to 90 pitches, get him up to 100 pitches. And then when you get to opening day, if he's not one of your best 5, what a tremendous piece to have in the back of this bullpen, a guy that can come in and give you a couple innings, maybe 3 early in the season, as guys are kind of getting their legs under them and getting a feel for, the demands and the workload. Graham Ashcraft, what a valuable piece that he could be. We also saw Chase Petty make his debut of 2025. We saw him in his first action going 2 innings. He struck out a guy. He walked a guy. Neither Ashcraft or Chase Petty gave up a run in their outing. So solid 4 innings of work from those 2 guys. Now, not such a great start. Reds ace Hunter Greene made his debut for the Cactus League in 2025 down in Goodyear against the Guardians, and he did not look sharp at all. In fact, he got tagged a couple times. He pitched 2 innings, allowed 4 hits, 2 runs. He walked a guy. He did strike out 3. There were times that he got the better of the Guardians hitters, but man, you want to know who got the best of Hunter Greene? That was Lane Thomas. He absolutely crushed a Hunter Greene fastball that, as the Cowboy would say, it was right down Broadway because it was tagged. Hunter's got some work to do. Now, that being said, it's the first 2 innings of the first game of spring training. Let's not overreact, everybody. Hunter's going to be fine. He's going to be the ace of this staff. I'm excited to watch him pitch, but he did come out a little flat. And, hopefully it's just a matter of, him being a slow starter and working on things and not necessarily doing what he would do in a game situation. We see that a lot. I'm not overly concerned. I would have loved to seen him come out and dominate, but that's not always the case. And just as long as Hunter's getting his work in and feels good and doesn't have any issues the day after and continues to rebound, Hunter Greene's going to be fine. Connor Phillips got into that game against the Guardians and looked a lot more like 2023 Connor Phillips than he did in 2024. And I know that sounds like I'm saying it's a good thing, and I guess it is, because he was just absolutely terrible in 2024. He struggled a lot, struggled to find his command, struggled to find the strike zone most of the year. But in this couple of innings of work, he still looked like he lacked his command. It was problematic. He wasn't controlling the ball well. He wasn't really fooling a lot of hitters. He did strike out a guy, but he walked 2 in the 2 innings that he pitched. I don't know about Connor Phillips, guys. He's very inconsistent, and I think that that's the thing that he's really got to work on. He's got to get that command. He's got to get consistent. There's no doubt in my mind he starts the season down in Louisville. I don't see a scenario where he has any opportunity, as long as everybody's healthy, to be part of this big league club, at least coming out of Goodyear. He needs to go down to Louisville, put in the work, continue to get better, and wait for an opportunity where he can come up. There'll be times that the Reds need to cover starts in 2025. Connor's going to have to work to be considered, one of those guys that gets an early call up if needed. Interestingly enough, the winning pitcher, the first win of the 2025 Cactus League season for the Reds. If you had Brian Shaw on your bingo card, well, shout out to you, because that is who got the win. 37-year-old Brian Shaw comes in, gets an inning's worth of work, strikes out 2 guys, walked 1, but gets 2 strikeouts and the win. You remember that Brian Shaw came over. He pitched for Tito Francona in Cleveland. Shaw's been around a long time. I think there's not a spot for him in this bullpen. I just don't know how they're going to accomplish that, but it's good to see the old guy. 37 is old. It's good to see the old guy out there getting a little work in and having some success. We also saw Ian Jabot make his debut for 2025. Solid inning of work. He struck out a guy, allowed a hit, didn't give up any runs. And then on Sunday, we saw the $21 million man, Nick Martinez, make his debut as well. Again, 2 innings, and that seemed to be the theme with these guys that are considered starting pitchers. All Hunter Greene and Nick Martinez and Graham Ashcraft and Chase Petty all threw 2 innings their first time out. Tito Francona has said he wants all of these guys ready to throw 90 to 100 pitches by opening day. It's going to be a little bit different, the pitching program that we see under Francona, than what we've seen in years past with David Bell running his team. I always felt like the pitchers weren't really ready when the season started. We saw them struggling 4.5, 5 innings to get past the 5th inning for the first month of the season. And I like that Francona is coming in here and saying we're going to do things differently. Nice to see all of the starters get a couple innings of work in these first games out, and we'll just see them continue to grow, continue to build until they get to that point of being able to throw the number of pitches that we want to see from them. All in all, less about the results on the field. Obviously, the Reds dropped 2 of these first 3 games over the weekend, and I do not care. Nobody remembers who won the Cactus League banner and 2022, but it's nice to see the guys back on the field. It's nice to have actual baseball to talk about. It was great to hear the sounds of the games and the crack of the bats and see our guys out there looking really, really good, looking like they've been putting in the work and making a lot of effort to get themselves ready to contend in 2025, which is what it's all about. So I look forward to continue to watch some of these spring games. It looks like the FanDuel Sports Network is going to carry 5 Reds games, 5 Reds broadcasts. If you have MLB TV, you'll be able to see some other Reds spring training games. You just kind of got to look around the schedule every day and see which ones you can pick up through MLB TV. But there's a good chance to see at least, a dozen or so Reds spring training games as we start making our way to opening day, which is just 31 days away, guys. And because it's 31 days to opening day, of course, we're going to take a look at the best Red to ever wear the number 31. I've got that for you coming up next. If you can't watch us on YouTube, you can listen to us on your favorite podcasting app. We're on pretty much every single one of them. Make sure you have subscribed. You can take us and listen to us in the car or while you're working out or during your lunch break at work, whatever it works for you. We want to talk Reds baseball with you. So if you can't watch us on YouTube, make sure you listen to the show. Thanks for being an everydayer. All right, 31 days, gang. 31 days remain until opening day. So we take a look at the best Reds to ever wear the number 31. There's some interesting names on this list. This has been a fun exercise. You go through this list each day and see names that you forgot about, or in some cases, guys I don't even remember playing for the Reds, but some interesting names and what might have been. You look down the list of guys that wear number 31 currently. That's Brent Suter wearing number 31 in the 2024 baseball season. More recently, Henry Ramos in 23, Mike Minor in 2022, Travis Jankowski 2020 wore the number 31. Going down the list, Alfredo Simon. What a great trade the Reds made there, sending him to Detroit for Eugenio Suarez. That was a highway robbery. Brandon Finnegan in 2015 wore the number 31. Johnny Gomes wore it for a few years. Going further back in time, Scott Sullivan wore this in 1998. Lee Smith, that's right, Lee Smith, 1996, wore the number 31. Mike Morgan wore it in 1996. Tim Belcher wore it for a few years, 92, 93. Johnny Franco, before being sent over to the New York Mets, wore this number from 1984 to 1989. Clay Kirby wore it for a few years back in the 70s during, the beginning of the Big Red Machine there. Jim O'Toole, he wore this number from 1958 to 1966. Looking at that time frame, he amassed 18.8 WAR, 3.57 ERA, pitched for the Reds in 10 seasons, ended up with a record of 98 and 84, 3.57 career ERA during his time in Cincinnati. He might be an honorable mention there in that scenario. I don't know that he's going to be our best Red to wear that of all time, but I think definitely an honorable mention. We're going to go further back in time, guys. We're not quite to the guy that I'm going to give the award for the best number 31 in Reds history. Going further back, we get through the 50s. Several guys wore it for 1 year. Don Gross wore it 55 to 57. Some more 1 year guys that don't really get consideration. And then we get to a couple names that are interesting. 1937, Johnny Vandermeer wore this for a season. Not giving it to him. I'm instead going to give it to Bucky Walters. Bucky Walters wore the number 31 from 1939 to 1948. And he did some things, guys. He had some tremendous years from 1939 through 1941. In 1939, Bucky Walters was the MVP. He was an all-star. He had 8.2 in wins above replacement. During this year, he threw 31 complete games, started 36, completed 31 of them, a 2.29 ERA through 319 innings, the most in the league that year. Struck out 137 guys. That was also the most in the league that year. What a tremendous run. He went on in 39 was an all-star, 40 was an all-star, 41 was an all-star, and 42 was an all-star, all for the Cincinnati Reds. A great stretch. He won the MVP in 39, finished third in MVP voting in 1940. He's going to be the guy that I give the honor of being the best Red to ever wear the number 31. Now, let's dial it back, or circle it back, rather. Let's circle back a little bit for the number 34 conversation that we had on Friday. A lot of you guys pushed back in the comment section. I went with Homer Bailey in the 2 no-hitters. And I if you listen to that episode, and by the way, sorry about the audio on Friday, guys. Something was wrong with the microphone and the computer just picked up my AirPods. Didn't realize it until after I had already posted. So sorry about that. Thanks for watching the show anyway. But a lot of you pushed back when I picked Homer Bailey, and I struggled with that pick. I hemmed and hawed and said, yeah, I guess I don't know. There were times that Homer Bailey was very, very good, and he had the 2 no-hitters, and that kind of pushed it over the edge. But a lot of you guys came at me on social media and came at me in the comment section saying, no, it was Pedro Bourbon, and I get it. I mentioned him during the course of that conversation and can totally see how he would be the guy that you went with. I think this one today, though, I think number 31 with Bucky Walters is much, much more clear cut. If you have a different opinion of a guy that should be labeled the greatest Red of all time to wear number 31, get into the comment section. Tell me who you think and why. I would love to hear your feedback. Love to see what it is that you think I missed here, because this is fun. I enjoy doing this every spring training. Sometimes we rehash some of these guys when we pick the same guys that we picked last year, but it's always fun to kind of go down the list and the memory lane and think about some of these guys that, we've forgotten about along the way and that played some time here in Cincinnati. And that is where we are going to go ahead and wrap up today's episode. Thanks, as always, for making us your first listen every day. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to continue to break down spring performances. We're going to talk a little bit more about how the Reds pitching is progressing, how it's developing, what the reliever situation is with the bullpen. We're also going to take a look at the best Red to wear number 30. It's going to be a very interesting conversation. For sure, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you've clicked that like button and that notification bell. I can't wait to talk Reds baseball with you tomorrow. Once again, I'm going to gather up all the news, the notes, and the information floating around Goodyear and the Cactus League and bring it back here to keep you locked on Reds every single day.